Let's assume you are working in one of the corporate offices where users have started reporting that they are not able to access their files or folders. And when you went on their desk, you realized that their files and folders are some kind of encrypted format. Then you understood there might be some wrong with these systems because the files and folder does not go encrypted just like that. Now the question is how such encryption happen on these systems. Well, such kind of encryption might happen because these systems were attacked by the outside attackers or hackers. So what these attackers or hackers do basically, they run some kind of code or algorithm on the systems so that the users won't be able to access their data. And attackers knows very well that data is very important for the users as well as the company. So what they're gonna do, they're gonna ask for the ransom money in order to provide the decryption key for this all the data. And if the company refuses to provide them the ransom money, so what these attackers basically do, they might destroy this data or make it publicly available so that they can destroy the company reputation or the business. Now the question is how the company should protect their confidential data from such attackers or hackers. Now there comes our today's topic about firewalls. Because the firewalls are designed to monitor such kind of behavior or activity so that these ransom attacks can be stopped. So in today's topic we are going to talk about the basics about firewalls. When it comes to firewalls, the firewall is all about packet inspection and take action according to policies being set on the firewall. And this policy can be set by the vendors, which is also known as predefined policy, or it can be set by the network or security administrator after this firewalls has been installed in the office, which is called the post-defined policies. But the main job of firewall is to packet inspection. And because of this packet inspection, the firewalls are basically divided into two categories. The first is stateful firewall and second is deep packet inspection firewall. This deep packet inspection firewall is also known as next generation firewall. So what is difference between stateful firewall and next generation firewall? Well, the main difference is on what level packet is inspected by the firewall. And that is how these firewalls are divided into different categories. Now let's talk about stateful firewall first. Well, these stateful firewalls basically used by these small to medium sized offices because such offices they have the basic requirement of internet users. Since this company they do not have their important data hosted on internet or any kind of server hosted on internet, that is the reason this firewall fit best for them. And another advantage of using such firewall is they fit into their budget. But one of the big problem with this stateful firewall is they work upon layer 3 and layer 4 in OSI layer. They monitor the traffic based upon connection or the conversation happening between source and destination. For example, if user is sitting in the office and he would like to access internet, this firewall monitor the user is going outside. And while it coming back, it just monitor the connection was went out. That is the reason it allowing the traffic to come in. So that is the main job of this stateful firewall, to monitor connection or their state. And that is the reason this firewall is basically known as stateful firewall. But that is a big issue with this stateful firewall because they monitor the traffic based upon IP addresses, ports and protocols. So why is it a problem with this stateful firewall if they monitor the traffic based upon IP address, ports and protocols? Well, to understand that, let's have a very simple example. Let's assume there is an employee sitting in the office and that employee has received the email from outside. And that email has contained some kind of URL which says that if you click on this URL, then you will get 50% discount on something like that. Since this employee might have believed that this kind of genuine email and he might get some kind of discount, so he just click upon the link. Now the problem started there because these links can be sent by the attackers or hackers. And after clicking on that link, this traffic goes through the firewall and connect to the attackers or hackers server. And since firewall monitor traffic based upon IP, ports and protocols, Therefore, the firewall believes that the traffic was initiated by the inside trusted IP address which is trying to go outside to the internet. Let's say this employee has connected to the attacker's server. Now attackers has got some kind of notification because he understood that some of the users have clicked upon his link. Since attacker knows the connection has been established between client and server, so he start executing malicious code on client machine. So what he does basically, he sends the traffic back to the client on port 80 or 443, or it can be on protocol HTTP or HTTPS. Now once traffic is came to stateful firewall, this firewall believes that the traffic was basically initiated by the inside office user, goes to outside, and it is just coming back the way it went out. And that is the reason it is a big issue, because now attacker had able to gain access to client machine. And that is how he started doing his malicious activity, and he started encrypting all the data on user's machine. Now the question is, why this firewall was not able to understand what was happening? It's because the attacker actually created the tunnel between server and client on user's machine. And this firewall is not capable of monitoring what goes inside, because it only monitors the traffic based upon IP, port and protocol. And that is a big issue with the stateful firewall. So how should we stop such kind of activity or behavior happening through the firewall? Well, this can be stopped by using only deep packet inspection. What that means is, if the HTTP or HTTPS traffic is passing through the firewall should be able to decrypt the traffic and should be able to understand what is going inside that packet. And that is how it can stop the traffic right away by doing the deep packet inspection. And there comes the firewall called next generation firewall, because these next generation firewalls are capable of doing deep packet inspection. Now let's talk about next generation firewall. This firewall basically do the job of the stateful monitoring, which is connection monitoring based upon the IP address, ports and protocol, and beside that it does a lot of things, which means it can also monitor traffic based upon the application. For example, if any user is using the application which is Facebook or Skype, this firewall can validate whether the traffic is belong to Facebook or Skype or not. This next generation firewall can also monitor the traffic based upon the URL. If the users are sitting in the office and they would like to access particular URL, you can allow only those users can access that particular URL, and except that particular URL, all the other URLs will get blocked at the firewall. Well, as we know, the traffic can be passes between the source and destination IP addresses, right? But this next generation firewall do support the traffic conversation based upon the user ID. What I mean is, if you have Active Directory in your office, or maybe you have created the local database for the users on the local firewall, then this firewall can monitor the traffic based upon the users. Let's assume there is a Bob sitting in the office and he would like to access google.com. Then on firewall you can define the Bob as a user should access particular URL, or he could access the internet. Well, such firewalls are also designed to monitor any kind of malicious activity going through the firewall. For example, if the traffic is passed through the firewall and it contains some kind of viruses, malicious code, or any kind of harmful attachment, then these firewalls would drop the packets right away. Well, you can also enable the VPN security on these firewalls, and then you can install the VPN software on client machine so that they will be stay connected with the firewall all the time when they are passing the traffic through the internet. So all the traffic passing from the user's laptop to the internet will pass via VPN through the firewall, which means their traffic would remain secure by using this next generation firewall VPN. Well, one of the big advantage of using this next generation firewall are these firewalls are capable of pulling the updates from cloud services, because there are many vendors who support the cloud services where they push the update related to antivirus, any malicious code or activities happening on the internet. So they push the update on the cloud, and this firewall basically pull the data from the cloud services and it protects itself from the zero-day attack. Well, these were the few features or advantages we discussed about next generation firewall. But there are many features available from vendor to vendor. So it's totally depend upon which vendor you are purchasing the firewall from. Well, this was all about basics of firewalls and their different categories. Now I will see you in the next video once we start configuring these next generation firewalls. So see you there.